must remind you of the dangers of releasing a Shimian. Those it doesn't want, it'll kill.
A family takes a camping trip into the forest to celebrate a birthday and fix their strained relationships, but their celebrations are cut short when they learn something unearthly is haunting them. James, great to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So this movie was a trip. It's well, it reminded me of all the freaky times I've had outside in the woods. There's a certain primal kind of fear aspect to this that I think that you tap into that's essential with these kind of movies. And I can tell like some of the influences that you took from it that played into it as well too. So tell us about kind of the genesis of this idea and your journey from kind of start to finish.
Okay, so it was around about November 2021 when we had the idea to do a movie, and we wanted to do a horror movie because we just love horror.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, well, we started to watch kind of horror movies that were coming out at the time and everything like that. And we thought, like, one of the things that I noticed about it all was like a lot of modern horrors, particularly, not all, but a lot of them have characters I don't really care about. So I'm kind of like rooting for the bad guy quite a lot to take care of the annoying teenager type people. So I thought it'd be kind of cool. I miss horror films where, you know, I want the characters to survive. I care about them. So when something bad happens to them, then it's kind of like, oh shit, that's bad. And so we went about writing, and I also wanted to focus on the entertainment value of it as well. I didn't want to go too deep into this whole myth of the Shimian or anything like that. I just wanted like pure, like entertainment, old school horror. Watching films like Jewel, do you know how simple that is? Like truck versus man. Who's in the truck? We don't know. Why is he chasing him? We don't know. It doesn't matter for that film. Again, Jaws is classic. Shark trying to eat man. That's as simple as that. You know, there's no sort of deep and meaningful thing going on there. And so we wanted to do something like that. So I come up with this story, and I do actually have some family members that go off camping into the woods for celebrations. That's their thing. They go off into the wilderness somewhere. And I thought, well, that would be interesting if they did that and something was hunting them when they were there. And then I added in all the sort of family drama and stuff like that to keep the characters sort of a little bit more 3D. And then that's how it kind of evolved from there. And it was, again, like you said, just making sort of like man versus beast, but again, holding it back so we don't quite see what's going on to the end. So we put in the characters' positions. Like, also, I mean, a lot of people don't call it a horror, but it's got a lot of horror elements in, which is Predator, the first one. I watched that again. I thought, like, it's all from the perspective of the soldiers looking out into the trees. Like, what is it? We don't know. And when that came out in '87, and we watched that for the first time, we were all like, well, what is it? You know, all like looking to see if we can see, like, is there something in the trees? I think there's something there, and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of wanted to bring that back a little bit. So that's the whole idea, and the whole concept was to do something about that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, this idea of the Shimian, the stalker demon, did this, I was looking up for it. Is this an actual folklore, or is this something that you came up with?
This is something I came up with. We were going to do this whole Blair Witch thing where I was going to say, oh, no, it's proper folklore and stuff. Because I used to live in China. I spent 5 years working in China. No, and I was going to say like something I learned about in China. It was this like demon sort of thing. And then it's all about that. It's not. It all came out of my head. But I just thought no one's going to believe the whole. I couldn't keep it going enough to believe. You know, Cloverfield did another great thing like that with their social media. I just couldn't keep it going. So I'm going to be honest and say, yeah, it's all from my head. Not try and claim that it's real or anything like that. But I mean, elements of it are kind of real. Like there are, you know, Chinese stories of demons like this.
They've got tons of folklore. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
So it's kind of like a little mix of everything. Kind of in there and just like taking influences and that type of thing. But the whole concept of a Shimian, it actually came, I mean, the word the Shimian or Shimian is Chinese for can't sleep, insomnia, right?
Oh, that's cool. I didn't
Right.
know
So
that.
it came from the idea, and that's why the sleepless forest, Shimian, sleepless forest, can't sleep, that type of thing. And it actually came from a short film that we did, also called The Shimian, where it was about this woman in a stately home, like a Downton Abbey like home, and she can't sleep, and there's something in the bedroom that's keeping her awake and kind of stalking her, and it's like under the bed sheets, you know, the bed starts shaking and all that stuff, and she, you know, goes mad. It's only like a 3-minute, I think, long horror film, but we called that The Shimian. And then when it was came, and we enjoyed that so much, it was kind of like, oh, let's develop that a little bit more into the into a feature. So we did that, and we couldn't afford to do it back set in the 30s like the short film. You know, we couldn't do a whole feature set like that. So we had to change the story a bit. But that story is the story that Claire, one of the characters, Claire, she tells around the campfire about this story about an old lady, Butter Manor, and all that is from the short film, which you can check out on YouTube. It's there. It's about 3 minutes long. That's Blattermanny as it was in the 30s and that type of thing. And it's kind of evolved all from that.
Yeah, the locations are great in this movie. They're essential for making the movie work. I noticed some kind of like some little Shining homages like towards the driving at the beginning and everything, and just like the isolation area of it, and the actual, once they get into the woods where they're camping, especially when they go to the house where all the creepy shit is happening, just the environment of it kind of just reeks of folklore. So how did you find these locations and secure them?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's like, to me, it's really important as a filmmaker that, you know, the environment that you shoot in is also a character in itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so important, and it just adds so much when you haven't got, you know, you haven't got the millions and millions that major horror films have and stuff like that. You know, you're rocking an indie budget and stuff like that. To be able to get these locations is just fantastic. And luckily, where we're based, which is in the middle of England, in the Midlands of England, there are quite a lot of these type of places. We have a lot of forest, a lot of greenery around here. And that big ruin of a manor house that we filmed in was actually was a real old, I think it was built in the 1300s, old manor house, and the BBC burnt it down accidentally. Filmed in the 80s, I think, and since then it's just been a ruin of a place, and it's owned by the Freemasons now.
No kidding.
And yeah, and they have like their own little rituals there and things like that. So I managed to get in touch with them, and they agreed for us to film, which is fantastic, because not only does it give that whole cinema sort of scope of this massive manor house and everything, underneath they've got all these tunnels, and you know, all the tunnels that the characters run through, they're really underneath the building, underneath the house, all these old bricks, the caves, you know, at the beginning they walk into the caves, that's just on the side of the building. It's an incredible place, and it's only about an hour's drive away from me, so to get that was a massive bonus, and it was fantastic.
That's fantastic. And with its history too, it's got its own folklore built into it too. That's great.
Oh yeah, the what they called the landlord or the caretaker, when we went there, he was telling us all the real ghost stories and all the horror stories that actually happened there. There was stories of like women throwing themselves off the balconies over the years, and guys and people sort of like stuck in the walls and in the caves and everything like that, and monks had been executed there, and when doing his shit and everything like that, and there were Sophie, who played Emma, she's terrified of anything like that, even though she's actually really sort of like brave in the film. In reality, she's pretty shit scared, so we had to be careful with her, sticking her in some of the dark rooms by herself, waiting, say, come on, waiting for the action, you know, the cue to run out. So we have to have people in there with her, because she wouldn't go in. And it you know, shooting at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's got that eerie feeling, and it just adds everything to it. Yeah. Great.
I'm laughing, but I would be scared shitless if I was there. Probably do. Kind of reminds me of that. What was that show? They had some reality show where they put people into locations that were supposedly haunted, and people would just freak out even if nothing would happen, just because your mind goes bonkers on you when you're in those kind of
Yeah.
situations.
And I tell you, when there's no one else around and you're in like an underground tunnel of this 1300 building, do you know, actually, you just reminded me, there's a coffin in the film. Scene where Tony and Emma run through, and there's an actual like coffin from like 1300 just still there, just on top of a table. There's nothing in it at the moment, but the coffin's still there. There probably was something in it at some point, I don't know. But yeah, but that's actually, you get a glimpse of that in the film. It's actually there. And it's stuff like that just lying around, and it's just like, it's just an amazing place. And the fact that the Freemasons are there doing whatever Freemasons do kind of adds to that sort of like mystery to the whole thing.
Yeah, you can make a movie just about those things that you were talking about, just its history of like people getting trapped. That's insane. But that, like, yeah, if I saw a coffin there, I would be totally fascinated, but I'm not going to open this thing because I don't want a second demon to come out. Or who, who knows?
Yeah, the real Shimian. I mean, that's a
or just don't disturb the dead, I think is generally a good idea. I'll leave them alone. Let them rest in that coffin. So now, have you had any, because I've had moments, and where movies like this kind of work really well for me is that primal aspect, because everybody can relate to going out into the woods and being freaked out. I've had some camping experiences where I'm like, if I go back camping, I'm not going in this thin piece of like vinyl or whatever separating me from all the creatures outside of it or whatever's lurking outside there. So it's just like your mind just constantly, it's like that scene in Blair Witch where she starts crying and hearing all the noises. Apparently when they were filming that, they were actually just completely messing with her and making all those noises, and they're kind of not giving her the script, from what I heard anyways, and making it up as they went along in that section at least, where she didn't know what was going to happen. So just throwing all these noises at her. So her reaction, and that has been my reaction a couple of times. Have you had any moments when you've been out in the woods and had like some kind of fearful moments that have provided as an inspiration for this? Or
yeah, actually there was at my school, my secondary school, so what I would have been about 13 to 16, I think, there was some woods at the back of the school, and they had ghost stories about the 7 steps. Apparently the White Lady was killed on the 7 steps, and it used to be a monk. It was an abbey. The school was called Whitley Abbey, and it used to be, you know, a big house, again, kind of like what we filmed in, and inhabited by a load of monks and stuff like that. So a lot of ghost stories around these woods. And again, you know, we used to go in those woods late at night, and it was very creepy. You've heard all the stories, and like you said, your mind starts playing tricks on you.
yeah,
your mind is sort of saying, did I just see something? And I remember once me and a friend of mine were in the woods, and we both heard this, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were actually doing some filming, not weird filming, let's get that out there right now. 1 o'clock in the morning, like we were trying to recreate the Blair Witch, if you must know, but there we go. And we both heard this this voice, like a female voice, go, hello, like that. And we just ran out of there.
Man.
But we both heard it. And then, like, thinking about it afterwards, we were like, well, what woman will be there 1 o'clock in the morning by herself? Like, it was just so strange. And it's absolutely true that happened. I mean, I'm not really one for like paranormal really and stuff like that. You know, it takes a lot to convince me and that type of stuff. But I absolutely did hear that, and so did he. We both heard the same thing, and it wasn't like a hello, like a what are you doing in the woods at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was a hello, like that, and we were off. I mean, you didn't. We were gone, and yeah. So that was a really sort of freaky thing. So again, when you're doing a film years later set in the forest and stuff like that, you do start to think about these type of things that you've gone through and how the mind can play tricks on you.
Yeah, that's what really makes horror movies work, when it taps into that. Absolutely. Well, that is so freaky. That's like a joint kind of, that's almost like sharing the same dream, but you're in the same place at the same time,
Yeah.
having the same kind of paranormal experience. So that was either a ghost or someone messing with you. That's so
Yeah,
bizarre.
well, yeah. I mean, even to this day, I mean, what were we then? We must have been like, well, I was at college doing filmmaking, so I would have been like 17, 18 or something, and I'm now 39. And to this day, he'll still bring that up. Like it's still, we can still clearly remember it.
Yeah.
It was something a bit weird and a bit special. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that taps into the authenticity of the movie when you're making it, because you're kind of, you can draw on your experience when you're making the movie. So you also did a successful Indiegogo campaign for this, for the post-production funds, which I think is a really good idea. So what was your experience like with crowdfunding? And do you have any pointers for anybody going out there and making their own movie?
Yeah, sure. Well, I did some crowdfunding before. In 2012, I made a Western film, and we shot that in Spain, where they filmed all the Dollars trilogy. Good, bad,
Oh
good.
yeah, the Sergio Leone. Yeah.
Yeah, we were out
Yeah.
there and we were doing a Western film out there. And it was part of my university project, but then we were kind of running low on money, so we did a crowdfunder. It was kind of like a new concept then. It wasn't really heard of. But one thing that we noticed, that people were trying to get the crowdfunders before they had anything to show.
Mm-hmm.
So we already had a movie. We had the short. We had shot everything. So it was kind of like what we needed then was the crowdfunders to get out into festivals. But this time it was a case of, again, like we've shot the movie. Have it first if you can. I mean, it's not always an option, but if you can have as much as you possibly can, have it first, then to show people this is how it's developing, this is how it's working. I think it's a lot easier doing it that way than saying, hey guys, we've got an idea for a film, this is the script, this is the people we want to have in it, and all that kind of stuff. Please fund our film and we'll try and get it to happen, right? If you can turn around and say, well, this is the trailer, we've already shot it, and now we're trying to get it out there or just finish it up or something like that. And that's what we did with the Shimian. It was post-production costs, just things like music licenses and things like that. There was some demo music that I used, which I found online, and it was just perfect. It's just I couldn't hear anything else in there, so it was like I need to get the licenses for this, and then expenses doing driving to go and do some ADR stuff and sound mix and stuff like that. Just basically polishing it all up. But we already had a film, so it helped. I think people could see what they're investing in.
Yeah.
That would be my advice. Try and get as much as you can, even if it's a demo reel or a sizzle reel or something like that. Try and get something that you can show people. It's so much better than just sitting in front of a camera saying, please give me money.
Yeah.
It's because and also be as kind of entertaining as you can be when you're doing your pitch. And you probably got about 3 to 10 seconds to grab somebody's attention online on an online video. So if you're sitting there your background's a bit dull, it's a bit, the video itself is not very well lit or shot nicely or anything like that, people will just off. So just make sure you know what you're doing when it comes to your pitch. And like I said, try and have something there before.
Yeah, I noticed you guys were cracking jokes in the pitch for it on the video, so I thought that was cool. Yeah, it was entertaining. You kept it light, you kept it entertaining, and then you had that short movie as well too. And I think it's good for, well, it's low risk for basically people that are kicking in money for it, because they know the movie's already done, so they don't have to worry about whether something's going to go wrong during the filming or whether it's going to be delayed. You guys are already done finishing funds, so I thought that was a really good idea. I'm glad that you set it up that way. So how long did you kind of plan on doing the crowdfunding stuff before you actually started the campaign, before you put up the campaign live?
We knew we were going to have to do one at some point. I think we knew that our budget wasn't massive, and we knew we had enough budget to at least get the film done. So we knew so it's probably before we started filming, we knew at some point we were going to have to do a crowdfunder.
Yeah.
It was just a case of, okay, we can get to this stage. And again, kind of through the experience with the Western and things like that, I thought at least we'll have something to show. It's a lot easier for people to invest in something. So that's what it was. And if it takes longer to edit and longer to finish off, then so be it. At least we would have the core of the film done already, because that's kind of the hardest bit, getting everybody together, getting the locations together,
Yeah.
everybody at the same time is really, really difficult. So if we can get past all that, then we can get it done. So we knew, I would say about 4 months, 4 or 5 months in advance, that we knew we were going to have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good to let people know, because that's from what I've heard from crowdfunding, is that always anticipate extra time. And then it's good that you're saving, because I think like a lot of people, when they make movies for the first time, they're not putting out funds for, festivals or anything like that. And those are at least $50 to $100 per entry.
Yeah. See, festivals for me are a little bit of a gray area. I know, because of that reason, some of them are quite expensive to enter. And as a filmmaker, I always have to try and question, what do I get out of it? What do I get out of submitting it to a festival? Because I don't really, I mean, I did have that Western I was talking about, did actually go to LA. It went to the Newport Beach Film Festival, and I was lucky enough where I could come over and support it and have that experience. But apart from that, I don't really know what film festivals are like in the States. But over here, they're not really, general public don't go to them. They're other filmmakers. So for me, it's kind of like, well, what do I get out of spending this money? Do I maybe like 25 to 30 people might see it if I'm lucky, and I've spent £100 getting it there. What's the point? Why don't I spend that £100 maybe on social media marketing or something else that may be valuable? I don't know. I think you definitely have to plan in advance what you want from your film. I mean, for us, it was always about, we'll get it on a streaming platform, we'll get it out there, and then point people to that direction the best we can with what resources that we have. Always think about that kind of stuff at the beginning, before you even turn on the camera. Where is it going to go? Because it's very, very important. Because certain places, I mean, you look at Netflix, they have a list now of equipment that they want you to see you use, before you can even submit to their thing. But not everybody has that, the money or the finances to be able to do that. So plan in advance, absolutely. Have a whole pre-production, production, post-production, marketing plan. Where's it going to go? How are you going to get bums on seats? Is that bums on seats in front of a cinema, bums on seats in front of their TV at home? It's still that's the business. People need to get that. Festivals, you get a nice laurel. You might meet some other cool filmmakers, but everybody's really there to support their own film. It's a nice little network, and you might have a nice night out and pick up a nice little award somewhere. But really, what's the value of that? How do you use that to value yourself? I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical about film festivals these days anyway.
No, it's completely understandable. I
mean, there are some great ones that have distribution companies attend and stuff like that. Find out, I mean, if that's again your thing, find out which ones they're attending. They're going to cost you more, and try and get your film into those, and in the hands of these people, or in the hands of some film markets and things like that. There are these things that people actually go to that are important and will be able to help your film, but a lot of them are just there for somebody to make a bit of money, and I'm a bit skeptical about those ones.
Well, it could be funny and a nice party for them. But I think the whole festival thing is interesting, because it's really kind of layered. There's all kinds of different things that go into it, or kind of questions or concerns or pros and cons, basically. So I think it's always interesting to bring up that question. Now, did you have distribution kind of set from the beginning, or is that something that you were searching for after you were finishing the movie, kind of like the crowdfunding part? Or
afterwards?
Yeah,
we didn't have that before. We knew we were probably going to have to do a self-distribution through Amazon or Film Hub, that type of thing. I did speak to a few distribution companies, but again, what they could offer me was kind of something I could do myself anyway.
Yeah.
So why split the percentage with them? I might as well, if I can do it, just do it myself. Next movie, maybe have something in line in the beginning. Just it's not a worry then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the music as well too. I think the score really stands out for me, especially that theme song. It's got a really like haunting, creepy kind of classical feel to it. And I think when I was kind of looking at some of the movies you were talking about for your inspirations, like Jaws, The Shining, It, Predator, a lot of those have very like kind of iconic themes. Like when I think about Jaws, I almost think of the theme as much as I think of the movie. Or when I think about John Carpenter movies, once I start thinking about the movie, like the music starts playing in my head. So I think that's a very important aspect as well too. So as far as like music wise, was there any kind of influence to the main theme or any other score?
Well, kind of like you just said, to be
Yeah,
honest. I think it's a lost art now in
yeah,
movies. I'm kind of missing that. The fact that you can hear, like 5 seconds of a theme song and know that's that movie. And it
yeah,
doesn't have to be horror. There's, adventure movies and all sorts of things. I miss that in movies. So it was myself who wrote the theme for the Shimian, and I had help producing it by Geordie, one of our guys. And again, it was kind of like, Geordie, I want to make it so like it does have that strong melody. So you hear da, 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 da.
yeah,
That's the Shimian. I know what that is. And we can try and blend it in throughout the movie. So it's kind of at the beginning during the title credits, and then it's kind of during the montage, and I think it crops up again a little bit later in some form. And then we were using I forgot to say this right now, the DS Israel. Have you ever heard of that? DS Israel, I
no, I
think
haven't
it's.
heard of that.
Okay, that's a piece of music. It's 4 notes
Uh-huh.
that is used. It come from like 800. It's 800 years old. I think monks used to chant it when at funerals,
Oh,
and
wow.
now composers use it in movies. And I guarantee you've heard it. For
Yeah.
a start, The Shining.
Hmm.
The,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's everywhere in film scores, and it's hidden away in the background. I
Uh-huh.
mean, John Williams uses it in Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all these things. And I thought I'm going to stick that in there as well, just to show A, what a film nerd I am, and B, because it's
Yeah.
always like
Hmm.
dread and death and things like that. So,
Hmm.
when the Shimian, when they kind of raise the Shimian at the beginning of the film, just quietly in the background, you'll hear the piano. Dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun. And then later on in the movie, when the piano has a more starring role, so we say, that's the tune that it plays. It's a famous piece of music. I'll say YouTube it or Google it or something, because it's amazing how many times that 4 notes crops up in movies.
Ah, that's great. That's really cool. I'm gonna look that up once we're once we're done here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
check that
I
out.
think
That
I
is
said it
awesome.
right. Yeah,
I love that.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that like I think like another thing that's really cool too is like the setup of the dysfunctional family, because that's like one of the things that just adds to the tension in The Shining, how like he's just gonna lose it. But in this one, the whole family is kind of losing it at the same time, but in different ways. So I think
Yeah.
that's great because it adds another component of you're out in the woods, you're being freaked out by the unknown, and then you have this tension within the family unit that's its own kind of monster in and of itself, because
Mhm.
everybody's kind of wearing their masks until their real nature comes out, or what they really feel about each other comes out, and they have to confront that as well as the demon. So I thought that worked really well.
Yeah, again, it was just trying to add something that's very relatable to the
Yeah.
audience. And
Oh yeah.
technically, the whole movie could have been about a family, and there wouldn't have been a Shimian or anything like that. You could follow that particular story.
I think
It wouldn't have been a very good horror film,
uh,
but it could have done. And then throw in the horror element with the
mhm.
Shimian and everything like that. It just adds to it, I suppose. But yeah, it's about finding these characters that are
Mhm.
relatable. Families go through a lot of this. The
Oh yeah.
stepmom, not getting on with the kid and stuff like that, and the relationship between the father and daughter being quite strained, and yeah, rebuilding relationships and how they work together eventually. And like you said, you know, and then when there's an external threat, how do they cope with that?
Yeah.
Because yeah, all their mass are we're all nice. We're going to have a nice, wonderful holiday, even though, you know, biting the lip and they're really hating each other.
Yeah.
It all comes out when, you know, the pressure's on.
Yeah. Well, confronting a demon together can be a bonding experience if you make it through alive.
Well, yeah, no spoilers, but if you make it through alive, I'm sure they'll all live happily ever after if they make it through alive.
So is there any one movie or like series of movies that inspired you to become a filmmaker, or was it something different? Oh, there you go, right there. I just saw that in 3D, the 3D version. They released at the theater about like a month or two ago. It was amazing to see that movie in the theater because I never saw it in the theater the first time.
Okay, I've never seen it in the theater. Yeah, I'd love to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's my ultimate movie that I'll always look to. I just think it, for me personally, there's just nothing wrong with it. Everything is spot on.
Yeah.
But again, like we were saying earlier, I went back to sort of like my childhood type of films and horror films, particularly It, the Tim Curry version of It. We haven't mentioned that. That was that scared me to death. There's a little bit of that in the Shimian, the whole like mind manipulative thing and that type of thing. But Jaws is always the one that I look at and go, that's got a great script, it's got a great score, it's got great editing, it's got great direction, it's got a great cast. Everything comes together perfectly for that film. Though an absolute pain to shoot, as the, you know, everybody knows, it wasn't an easy shoot to film to shoot, sorry. And but yeah, I would say Jaws, Predator, It, The Shining, these type of films I really looked at before doing the Shimian.
Oh yeah, all fantastic movies. Yeah, I'd heard that like Spielberg got fired something like 30 times when he was making Jaws. Oh, it's just, and then it went over schedule. It was supposed to start at like 30 days and it went up to like 100 or something like that. It was crazy, but it was just all these awesome stories about it. But
to think he was 27 making Jaws.
Yeah, isn't that insane? Yeah.
He was smart enough to cast the producer's wife in a main role.
Yeah.
And then I think I heard an interview where he said, you know, the old Hollywood saying is never take the film out of the camera. Obviously, it's all digital now, so it doesn't make any difference now. But in those days when it was filmed, never take the film out of the camera because you never know if they'll let you put it back in. So he didn't, and he took it, and he took it back with him, and he would keep it in his room so no one have it. He was a very, very, and still is a very, very smart guy. And for 27 to come out with Jaws,
oh yeah,
envy him.
Well, what's great is all the drawbacks he had and all like the kind of horror stories and all the things that didn't work ended up making the movie that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, and it does help, like, you know, like in the Shimian when it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, it was freezing cold, people are tired and miserable. You kind of in the back of your mind think, as a director anyway, like, come on, if I can keep them going, it could be really good. Look what happened at Jaws. The shark didn't bloody work, and then look at how great that was. And when things go wrong for you, you just think, yeah, but it went wrong with Spielberg, didn't it? And it all went well in the end, and that type of stuff. So yeah, I always look at that film as a masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece.
It's awesome. It is pretty much a perfect movie. I mean, because when I saw it again, and I've seen it several times, but when I saw it again in the theater, it's like, this is pretty much a flawless movie.
It is. You know, it's a very rare thing, but it's one of those films that is just it's great. See, one of the films that people always compare the Shimian with, because it's camping, forest and demons and stuff like that, will be the Blair Witch, but I stayed away from it. I didn't mind the first one. The first one was a great concept when it came out, but I'm not a total Blair Witch fan or by any means, and there wasn't really any influence of the Shimian, sorry, of the Blair Witch in the Shimian. Yes, it's about camping. Yes, it's about the forest, but that's as far as it goes. I mean, it's not a found footage type thing. You know, most of our shots are as steady as they can be, and stuff like that. And we were very careful not to go down that route. And make it like that. You know, we wanted to have a quite cinematic, as most cinematic as we can.
Oh yeah, Blair Witch was one of the precursors for motion sick or
Yeah.
motion sickness. Uh, like disclaimers at the beginning of shows. Yeah, yeah. I remember like seeing that movie in the theater with people, and they were like getting ready to vomit almost because the camera was moving so much. But they had a brilliant social media campaign where everybody thought it was real.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
something that was awesome about that movie, and it did work for me on a primal level too. There was moments where it freaked the crap out of me in several spots. So, but
Did you see the MTV documentary they released?
no, was that about
That
like the making of Blair Witch?
No, that was like they released before the film came out,
Uh,
the original film. I believe they released a MTV documentary about the kids that went missing, and it was kind of like
oh, wow, yeah,
and they went into depth. They went into more of the backstory of the Blair Witch in this documentary, and they were saying about, it could be someone from the village, and somebody was in the 50s was actually a murderer
yeah,
from the village and all that kind of stuff. And it just planted all this seed of, was it real, not
yeah,
real, before anybody even went into the theater.
yeah,
And the whole marketing campaign for that was just fantastic. And again, like when you were saying earlier about the
mhm.
Shimian, a real thing, we did think, should we go down that route? But I couldn't pull it off, so I just thought, nah, forget it. It's
I think it was great that I was confused whether it was like a real folklore or not, because I was looking up, is there an actual demon called this? And I couldn't find it. And as I didn't know whether it was real or not. But I think that's great to keep people guessing as to whether it's real or not, because there are so many like Chinese legends and folklores, things like that. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
Awesome. Well, so you've been very generous with your time. Thank you so much. Let us know where people can find out more about your work and can check out the Shimian.
Okay, so like you can check out the Shimian now on Prime Video, US and UK, or Tubi. It's out on Tubi, so that's US, Canada, Latin America, Australia, New Zealand. I think it does there. And there should be some more channels coming up soon that are more worldwide. So you can go onto our Twitter, which is the Shimian Movie, or go onto the website, which is shimian.com, or follow Barda Media Entertainment on Twitter or bartamediaentertainment.com. It's got all the news there, and you can keep up to date with it and whatever. But I just hope everybody, enjoys the movie. It's not one that you really have to, think about too much, but it hopefully gives you a lot of frights where it should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much again for being with us, James. So we've been talking to James Peakman, writer-director of The Shimian. Check it out. Amazon Prime in the UK and the US, as well as Tubi TV and the other sites that James mentioned it as well, too, for more information. And we'll also post some links on the podcast site. And until next time, if you go camping where demons spawn lurk, bring an armored vehicle or camp in the day, or only walk 100 feet, or if you're going to go farther in, bring Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he's the only one that made it through that group in Predator, and they're all trained Marines. So
I can just tell you now, covering yourself in mud isn't going to protect you from a
no,
Shimian.
it's not.
It's just not going to work. Don't waste your time.